Okay. अस्सलाम वालेकुम everybody. आपका बहुत शुक्रिया आप लोगों ने हमारी इस सीरीज ऑफ सेशंस को ज्वाइन किया, जिन्होंने नहीं ज्वाइन किया अभी because it's work hour now. तो बाद में आप देखिएगा और आप लोग जो opinions होंगे जरूर दीजिएगा. I apologize for the big delay and the big the gap between so many sessions जो पिछले आए. I've been a bit busy in handling several fronts. की वजह से I could not do this on a regular basis, but now we're back, and we're back with a very interesting episode, I'd say, of with someone who I dearly respect for the skills he has in not just one area, but he's known to be he's made his mark, and I'd be safely be saying this at a global scale on how to negotiate, how not to negotiate. Negotiations are a very important part of any business. People negotiate, families negotiate, countries negotiate. So negotiations are going nowhere. It's an art, and as the doctor was telling me in the behind the scenes, it's a science. I'm very interested to know what is the science behind negotiation, because I've always considered it to be an art. And a lot of us get inspired by movies we watch, in which the protagonist, the hero figure, the lead usually ends up negotiating really well. But in real life, negotiations aren't that dramatic. They're actually more difficult than they appear in a movie, and that's why it's a science. So we will be talking about that for sure. I have someone with me today who I think played a massive role in giving me an introduction into the world of into the formal world and the formal need of negotiations. Dr. Smolinski is someone who I dearly respect and have known for many years now, at least eight years to say the least. I've been following his work. I think he's been following mine. And after quite a bit of time, we've agreed that let's talk to the young people in Pakistan, and let's talk about negotiations. And so I welcome him formally. So if my team can ask, help Dr. Saab join. Hi, Doctor. Doctor, how are you?
I'm doing well, Nabil. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for your kind invitation. It's awesome to be to join your series of coaching sessions, and I look forward to answering your questions and the questions from the Pakistani audience.
Lovely. First of all, thank you for taking this time out. And before we can make it all business and negotiations and money and all of that, let's make it a bit more personalized. Let's talk about who. Let me call you Dr. Remy. Who Dr.
Remy is fine. You can skip
Remy is
doctor.
fine. Yeah. Okay. I have to give you that respect. Being a doctor is a special thing. So you have to give you respect. So Doc, tell me, who are you, and where do you come from, and where did you grow up, and how did you end up where you are now? Tell us everything that that can be told.
How much time do we have for your? So I'm slowly getting old, so my introductions were probably getting longer and longer. But let me try to put it into as few words as I possibly can. I was born in Poland, and that's where my journey began. At some point, together with my family, we moved to Germany, and I did my PhD here. Spent some time also working at together with Jess Salacuse at the Fletcher School in the United States and Harvard's program on negotiation, where I discovered my passion. Yeah? This is and that's the area of helping people understand and manage, understand the nature of conflict and manage it appropriately. And this is something which not only influenced my own personal life, but also set a mark on various other things, determined the rest of my career. As you correctly pointed out, many years ago we started with an idea of setting up a negotiation competition, and that is a global negotiation competition where young, ambitious individuals would get an opportunity to get together and try to resolve conflicts the best they can. and try to figure out which approaches work better, which approaches maybe need to be improved, worked on, and so on. And it's been an awesome journey. An awesome journey. We've met hundreds or thousands of negotiators, their coaches, negotiation professors, and recently we started also a competition for professionals, for business professionals, which is right now in progress. We just got done with round number 1. We're just about to start round number 2, with negotiators from as far as Nagoya, Japan, and San Francisco, California. All time zones with 12 hours time differences in between. And it's so awesome to see and experience passionate people eager to get to know each other in the first instance to compete, but then ending up as friends. And that's been an awesome journey, an awesome experience. Sorry for such a long introduction. That's where I am right now. I'm based in Hamburg, Germany, and love sharing my passion for the topic with people around the world.
And that I know. I saw your passion 8 years ago when I was part of the competition. So you mentioned countries from east to west, all parts of the globe. Quick question. In so many years of experience of watching people negotiate, which are the few top countries that produce the best negotiators, and why?
That's a very good question. It's negotiation. We typically define negotiation as a skill, which means I like the word that you used, produce. Produce means it's possible to train. It's possible to get better. It's possible to improve by 2 things. First of all, repetition. Second, structure feedback, be it training, having a coach or whatever else. So produce is let's put a check mark on produce, because negotiation as a skill can become better. When it comes to how this skill can get improved, can become better, it's typically other people, and not so much countries. I know you meant a mental shortcut in terms of an equivalent countries and people, but it's typically other people that help us become better at the negotiation table. It's the negotiation training, the lectures, the sessions, the competitions, right? The ability to apply our skill combined with an immediate feedback on how it works. How is it working? How am I doing? Right? Am I coming across? Am I able to produce correct solutions? And in the negotiation challenge, we've seen very little pattern when it comes to a connection between performance and nationality. It's typically good coaches, great people that help others become better. And that's not only the case for negotiation, that's also a fact of life leadership, right? Yeah, exactly. It's you have a great leader, and this leader will produce even better leaders. It's the mediocre leaders that typically make others worse. Whereas when it comes to negotiation, leadership, and other managerial skills, it's grace and greatness that produces greatness. And this greatness is distributed across the world. So for example, this year it was a French team and a US team that won the competition, but the French team consisted of a Canadian, I think, if I remember correctly, a French person, and someone else from somewhere else. I don't remember exactly. So we've had a variety of nationalities, teams, universities, and individuals from various countries ending up on top. So it's very hard for me to answer your question in terms of where do they come from, because I see no pattern. I see only a pattern of that there are coaches. When they get a team, regardless of where the team is from, they seem to be able to help that team become better negotiators. So yes, there are universities that perform really well in consecutive years, but it's not due to where they are from. It's due to who helps them become better.
It's summing it up. We can say that it's greatness producing greatness.
Absolutely.
So that kind of makes sense. Yeah. So that again speaks so much about the importance of leadership and the importance of the leader in that team, and how he or she can translate that vision down into other people. That's wonderful. Uh, Tell me something, Remy. Why is it that some people, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go into countries again because I've dealt in these past years of real negotiations. I have dealt with people from various countries. And sometimes the biggest challenge really is to understand the norms. There are norms for one set of people. Say someone from Japan operates differently. They have a different linguistic for and gestures for various things they say and do. Sometimes something you say and do can offend them. Um, do you think this is a sensitive part in a successful negotiation, to understand others' culture, or where they're coming from, or is it something that can be ignored?
Oh no, yes, absolutely. Great question again, Nabil. Thank you so much. Cultural sensitivity, sometimes also called cultural intelligence, yeah, is an integral part of negotiators' performance. Yeah? It
Right.
correlates to some extent with empathy and the ability, knowledge, and the ability of accommodating different cultural patterns. Yeah? Before we move further down this route, let me maybe first start off with very seminal research done by my mentor Jess Salakus from the Fletcher School, who many years ago in the 90s already, beyond all doubts, was able to show that people from different countries negotiate differently. And he captured negotiation styles along, I think, 9 or 10 dimensions, and was immediately able to show that those from Japan, given whatever criteria, whatever evaluation dimension we're talking about, are different than those from Germany, the US, or Poland, or Pakistan. And that was sort of this what started the research on cultural differences in negotiation. Okay, despite methodological difficulties that we face while dealing with this topic, meaning, what is culture? How do we grasp? How do we define culture, and so on? Yeah, I think there is a unanimity. Sorry, you know what I mean. Yeah, everybody agrees. Everybody agrees that
there's a common understanding.
There is a common understanding. Thank you so much. Common understanding that negotiation style in different regions, countries, and also some within a particular country for different professional groups are different. So what do we do with this? There was the question. Okay, we found out that it is the case, but how do we deal with this? You mentioned, Nabil, you've dealt with people from all over the world, but what is impossible to do is to adapt 100% the style of the person that we're negotiating. Simply because we're missing the background, we're missing the knowledge, we're missing the prehistory of that, the experience that this person has made, the perception that this person is going through, so that's very difficult. So instead, we started talking in the literature about cultural sensitivity, and cultural intelligence. And what is it? And that's less the knowledge about and the ability to imitate the other person's style, or the knowledge about that style, but it's the ability to embrace that style with it while being authentic myself. And that's, I think, is the key. Is the key to cross-cultural negotiations. That means what we need to do is we need to show the other party that we are genuinely interested in their interests and what they want to achieve in a particular negotiation, and at the same time being authentic with our interest. The world has become a village, so people from different cultures know that their negotiation partners might be different, But it's instead of interpreting it as an awkward sign of disrespect, they can also embrace it as a part of the process. And I think that's the key in dealing with negotiations across cultures.
Very good answer. Thank you very much for this. Brings me to the next question that I have for you, and I'd like your take on this. A lot of times I've worked with people and my friends who are in senior positions across the globe, some of them in the Middle East, some in Asia. We talk often, and we figure, and we've discussed over a cup of tea or coffee, that most people think that negotiation is about winning, one side winning it and the other side losing it. I mean, it works well in a competition, but in a real life situation where you have to, you're not going to work with someone just once. See, there's going to be another tomorrow or the day after, and you'll work again. So, how important is a win-win setting?
Very good question. There is a typical, as you said, there is a very common misconception or a myth when it comes to the objective of a negotiation. Yeah, like you said, many people think that I am there to win. I am there to kick the other person's butt, to make sure that they lose, right? And that typically directs our attention away from the problem. Because what we are there for is we are there to find a solution to a joint problem. When there is a buyer and the seller, nobody gets anything. If we're not able to settle a joint problem, and that is, what is the price of the goods that we're going to exchange? That's the most simplistic situation. But even if we add the complexity, it doesn't change the dilemma. We have a set of interests on one side, and a different set of interests on the other side. And what we are there for is we are there to produce a solution that works for one party and for the other at the same time, because at the end of the day, both parties need to sign a contract and saying, okay, that's the solution I support, that's what I agree with, and this is what it's going to be. So to answer your question, what is important, I typically also urge my students to differentiate between the objective of a negotiation and its type.
Interesting.
What do I mean by this?
Interesting.
We started at some point. We coined a notion of negotiation intelligence. Negotiation intelligence being as the ability to recognize the specifics of the situation and the attitude of our negotiation partner, while applying the appropriate methods to deal with the combination of situation and partner. Why did we need it? We needed it for our competition. There's a lot of research that was derived out of the need of the competition, of our competition. But we don't want to give a wrong advice to negotiators. So there are situations in which, for example, I don't know, we're buying or selling assets such as plant, machine, car, house. The probability of ever meeting again is tiny. It's positive, but it's tiny. What's the probability that we're going to sell a flat or a house to the same person?
It's next to zero.
Yes, exactly. So this is what we call a distributive situation. This is what we call the distributive situation, and negotiation intelligence would point us towards, hey, if that is the case, what is my objective here? My objective here is to get as much as I can, to maximize my share of the pie. And by definition, the fact of this negotiation being distributive means that what I get is what somebody else is not going to get. So that's but that's a small fraction of negotiation situations. Like you correctly pointed out, there are also other negotiation situations which are more complex, where a negotiation starts a potential future relationship. I'm right now in a particular in a process that is exactly like this. We need to agree on conditions of our cooperation, future cooperation, and if we manage to do that, it will just start and hopefully continue in the long term. So as a negotiator, I need to I need to use a different repertoire of tools and methods to manage that situation. If I insist on getting as much as I can, that will influence the other party's perception of myself down the road. So negotiation intelligence allows us to recognize correctly which situation I'm in, what is the mindset of my negotiation partner, and then use the method appropriately. So to answer your question, sometimes win-lose is a legitimate approach, because it's not possible even to create a situation where both wins, where both parties win. But in vast majority of the situations, by sharing information, by exchanging offers and counter, we are able to produce solutions that expand the pie and are better for me and at the same time for the other party. So, and that is what smartness of what negotiation intelligence is all about.
Yes, that's true. It's basically being able to create a common ground of understanding, which kind of forms the foundation for future relationship, and that's successful. Very good. That makes a lot of sense. Brings me to another question, Doc. Tell me that if I were to ask you, in your experience, what is that one negotiation that you've seen or experienced yourself, which truly inspired you? And this could be business, non-business, anything at all. Entirely your choice. It's a very wide question, but that's totally your pick now. Why did it inspire you? What was it about? Maybe you can give us some context of what the negotiation was about, and who led it, and where did it, and what was agreed, and why did it inspire you? Because this will give some measure of understanding to the audience about, okay, so this is the kind of negotiation that should inspire us, us to do better.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great question. Let me think. Generically, what I absolutely love to see in the negotiation challenge is the shift in the momentum. That not many teams manage to produce. Let me maybe explain what I mean. Typically, when both parties engage in a negotiation process, normally they are eager to find an agreement at the beginning. Yes, let's talk, let's negotiate, and at some point, once they've exchanged, the casual, once they've exchanged the greetings and so on, and the small talk, interests, shared information, at some point they arrive at the conclusion, hey, this guy doesn't get it. You cannot see the situation. You can only see the situation the way I see it. That's the only legitimate way of perceiving it. Whereas the other person, guess what? They are thinking exactly the same.
Same thing, yeah.
Exactly the same. So there comes to a conflict builds up at the moment, right? And the parties get disillusioned with each other. And instead of this willingness to find a solution is replaced by frustration. So what the heck? Why is this guy so stupid? Why doesn't he or she understand it? I've explained it to you. This is how it is. This is how we see the situation, and you have to accept it. Well, guess what? They are saying exactly the same thing, and that's the key moment of the negotiation process. Typically, smart negotiators are able to, in that moment when they notice, that the tension is building up, frustration is growing,
they neutralize it.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Great negotiators pinch themselves and say, why am I here for? We need to produce a solution. So what do I need to do? Let's, instead of questioning the legitimacy of the other party's interest, let's acknowledge it. Okay, I understand that you see the situation this and that way.
Right.
I see it this and that way. Let's put it together and start coming up with ideas how we can bridge the gap between us. Not many teams, not many negotiators are able to move beyond frustration. So best example is right now the ongoing Brexit negotiations. That's exactly what
you really want to go there? Do you really want to go there?
Right. This is it's really awesome to observe and read about it. Right. At this particular moment, both parties are fed up with each other, yeah? And each of them lists reasons why the position of the other party is not legitimate, is inflexible, doesn't show the understanding, and so on and so on. Yeah? So now it's the time for the great negotiators to step in and start working on solutions. Convincing each other rarely, or trying to convince each other, rarely produces smart solutions. So the negotiators or negotiations that inspire me are those where I see, okay, we start off highly motivated, with positive energy. We find, what's going on? These guys are tough nuts, and this is not going well. And then they are able to step back and start looking for potential solutions. This is what I believe. What I believe is characterizes great negotiators, characterizes greatness, and there have been lots of such negotiators in our history. Lots of great negotiators who are able to do that. Let me just name a few. I think Angela Merkel, German Chancellor, she's an awesome and great negotiator, brilliant negotiator. Yes, I believe Barack Obama had this ability as well to elevate. Yes, exactly. Together with his administration, to elevate themselves beyond the problem and start looking for solutions while acknowledging and respecting their negotiation partners as individuals or as teams, right? So yes, these are just two contemporary examples. There are lots of great negotiators also in the history, like the French foreign minister Talleyrand, who was able to survive most of his kings and employers, right, who died in French Revolution, Restoration, and Napoleonic Wars, either died or were sent to exile, right? And others whom we know from history lessons, who are able, through their negotiation skills, were able to change the course of history.
Very true. It's actually very interesting. I mean, you really made it very simple to understand. And when a lot of people, when we sit into these situations of negotiation, you can tell with your experience that now this is a point where there's going to be a freeze, because they'll play on their pitch, I want to play on my pitch. And the real maturity really is to kind of acknowledge the other party, then let them, because it's more of ego play, if you understand. See, it's basically you moving away from the objective, and you've now made it personal. Why is this guy not getting what I'm saying? I'm talking sense. Whereas this is too much of I here. Whereas what we have to sometimes do is to kind of move back and see, is the goal really about I, or is the goal about achieving a common setting? And that really is, I so agree with you that defines a great negotiator. That's someone who may appear weak just for a few seconds or maybe a few minutes, but just because he moved back or she moved back, but it's because they want more room for the conversation to happen and things to work out in a direction. So yes, you've explained it very well, and so it was a pleasure hearing this from you. Before we take questions from other people, I have one question where I'd want to ask you. This people negotiate. They negotiate in workplaces. They negotiate with vendors. They negotiate as partners. Investors negotiate with startups. Countries negotiate within themselves. Prime ministers and presidents negotiate. Actually, they don't. They just sit there. The real negotiators do all the work. But when they do, do you think someone who has had the experience of learning the art or science of negotiation from the time from the time he or she was in college or university, or he was and they were going through these competitions, and then they joined the business sector, they do negotiate there. can a business negotiator turn into someone who can be a successful, I'd say, a political negotiator? Can that switch ever happen, or do you think these are two different signs?
Oh yes, absolutely. In one of the typically in my introductory sessions of my negotiation 101 classes, one of the first things that I mention is that negotiation skill is background agnostic or industry agnostic, which
Right.
means there is a set of generic tools, methods that help us regardless of the substance, as we call it in negotiation science, which means regardless of whether we negotiate, I don't know, peace treaties or complex business deals, or maybe difficult family issues, there's a set of tools, methods that has universal, that can be applied universally across across the substance, across the context. So yes,
Right.
the answer to your question is absolutely. I do strongly believe that someone who's a great business negotiator can be taken out from business, put into be it diplomatic, political, or any other context, or family, right? Family context, and do a good job there as well.
There as well.
I think one of the things that we need to think about is that business, per definition, almost is very much plagued with the fixed pie myth that we discussed before, the win-lose mentality.
Yes.
It's not that it's completely absent in politics or diplomacy, but I think those who deal with other topics, non-business topics, get used to the fact that it is possible to produce solutions that work for you and for me at the same time. Whereas business typically, especially under in conditions where resources are scarce, typically is majorly about win-lose mentality, and this is something that we need to work on, to be able to step beyond what I've been naturally conditioned to, in terms of, hey, maybe I don't have to squeeze the last penny out of him, because maybe we will deal together in the future, right? In a sense, what I'm trying to say is, to answer, to summarize my quick answer to your great question, is negotiation is context agnostic or substance agnostic.
Very true.
Expertise in the substance sometimes can help, but even people who are even people who are unfamiliar with the substance can do a good job in a particular context. Whereas at the same time, our experience from the past or type of the negotiations that we've conducted also has an impact on our style. So we need to pay attention to what extent not to become a win-lose or win-lose negotiators only, to have a wide repertoire of tools, methods, wide spectrum in our negotiation intelligence.
What you said here, Remy, was insightful, because in the times we're heading now into, and especially after COVID, there would be more need to collaborate globally. There'll be we should basically be moving towards a more collaborative world. And that won't happen if the mantra of negotiation does not change. It cannot be, let me squeeze every buck out of this guy, let me make them feel the loss. No, that's not how you'll operate. So that's why a lot, and as Pakistan, for example, we're a country that is very overly influenced now by the economic impact of what we call the CPEC. The CPEC is the Chinese route into the sea, because we're neighbors with China, and China is a supreme world power now, no doubt about that. But their way of negotiating and operating is very different from, say, the American way of doing it, or the European way of doing it. And they're very hard negotiators. And that, for example, like to give you a quick scan, a lot of our small medium enterprises are closing down because we cannot possibly compete with the per unit cost of production in China, and they're hard negotiators. So maybe we need to move in a world where businesses need to collaborate and negotiations need to be more rather organic as opposed to metallic. It can't be 1-0. Has to be a shade of gray. So that's something that you pointed out again. I would seek your permission to now maybe ask my team to put up some questions that we received from the audience, and then we can maybe discuss them, and you can steer those.
Absolutely, it would be my honor and pleasure to answer the question from your audience. Yes.
Thank you very much. So let's see what the first question is for you. Why did you start? Well, that's a simple question I should have asked. Okay, so why did you start the negotiation challenge?
Thank you so much for this one. I will never forget. To me, the aha moment right before putting up the idea of starting a negotiation competition at some point, an international negotiation competition, was my time that I spent in the US during my PhD, and working with some of the greatest minds in the area on negotiation. And I remember attending lots of courses in Boston areas in different universities, and many of them started with a claim that negotiation is a skill. And when this strongly resonated with me. What does it mean that negotiation is a skill? What are the consequences of it? Right? We defined it briefly, right? What skills are, but what are the consequences? Well, if we think about it, the consequences of defining something as a skill are profound. So let's take, for example, language skills or music or sports, right? I think you guys play cricket, right? Cricket playing skills. So what is important is that we can measure and compare performance in almost everything that we define as a skill. So there's a World Cup in cricket. There are singing competitions. There are piano playing competitions. There are competitions in whatever sports, figure skating, ice skating, you name it. If we define something as a skill, typically the consequence is that we can compare the performance of that in that skills while performing that skill.
Right.
And that was this sort of the mantra of defining negotiation as a skill led me to an idea that, well, if we do define negotiation as, then we have to be able to compare and measure it. And that was the moment when we said, hey, let us create a precedence. Let us set up a set of rules, announce the rules, and invite people to compete with each other. And that was in 2006, 2007, many years ago already. And it was probably one of the single most profound things that came to that happened in my life, because it opened up so many opportunities. Hey, we met. Now we're working together. Now we're speaking across two continents, right? And that's really awesome. That's not only me. Many people who have come across each other, kept in touch beyond. We have a TNC marriage. People who met during the competition at some point decided to negotiate with each other forever. All right. So, and lots of great moments, but the aha moment at the beginning was the definition as such. Negotiation being a skill and the consequences of that definition.
Yes, and how it can be quantified. So, and every skill can be quantified, and that's needed. That's needed really. That's needed everywhere. Let's take the next question. That's a long one. So, what to do when you are frustration point in the negotiation, suddenly pinch yourself to be on common ground? There you notice that they become stiffer on their agenda because your frustration. How then you can be the smart negotiation and acknowledge their point of view as they are stiff? Well, you might be able to figure this out, but what do you think?
Sadaf, thank you so much. Thank you so much for asking. There is a great video of William Ury. I'm not sure exactly from the top of my head. It's one of the TEDx, one of his TEDx talks. I'm sure you'll find it on YouTube, where he talks about his negotiation experience in Venezuela, and he recalls a great example where he was personally attacked by a political leader, and his first reaction was our typical natural reactions. What do we do when people attack us? We have our amygdala tells us either to fight or flight. And that's hardwired in our brain. That's hardwired in our brain. So his intuition was to either fight back, right, or to withdraw and to leave. And he said, but then the second thought was, if I do this, I would not achieve the objective of the negotiation. Why I'm there? They called me, they got me, they invited me to their country and asked me to help them with the negotiation. And I will be only effective if I pinch myself and refocus on the problem. Let me forget this personal attack. It doesn't bring us any further. It won't help me, it won't help them, and it won't help the other party. Instead, he used the momentum of this personal attack towards solving the problem. And this is actually what great negotiators are able to do. I know it's hard from my own experience. I've experienced many of such instances. When we are attacked, we're in the instinct mode. And our instinct tells us, hey, you're under attack, you have to defend yourself, or you have to escape. Leave or fight. That's what our amygdala tells us.
And if I could reword what you just said there, I usually tell my students when I'm teaching that if such a situation ever hits you, just remember that emotions and emotional quotient are two different things. So do not let emotions take over. Manage with your EQ, because your EQ will tell you what the goal is, what the purpose is. You'll go back to the purpose and you will move yourself away from. So basically, it's like a seesaw between ego and esteem. So if you can just take it back to your esteem and say, how about I do something here that helps my counterparts also raise their esteem while I raise mine in the process. And so basically, it's a battle of egos, frankly. Ultimately, it's a very human thing to be instinctive. It's a very human thing.
It is, and that on that level, as it was stated in the question, and on that level, we need to develop a mechanism that fights against what is hardwired in amygdala. Our frontal cortex, that's the function of our frontal cortex. This is and frontal cortex has a nice quality that means it can override our instinct, but it needs to be conditioned to do so. That's why it's not only genes that determine who we are and how we function in our ecosystem, in our world, but it's also what we've learned. The connections in our frontal cortex are developed through our lives, and that means we can counterfight the intuitive reactions of our amygdala, but they will be there first. And we need to somehow keep in the back of our mind that our intuition, most of the times in such situations, will tell us a wrong answer. Wrong answer meaning fight or flight. Instead, refocus on the problem.
Yeah, that's true. And it comes with practice. And lots of experience. Again, as you said, it's not just genes. It's genes plus experience. So it's a learned behavior. I strongly believe that if you know what you've gone in for in that negotiation, and if you're very clear about the goal, everything else should take the back seat. So such situations also should not cause you from moving from your, or should make you move from your core goal, which is to agree on a common on a common ground which is mutually beneficial to both parties. And that's how a good negotiation, in most situations, as you rightly said, closes. Let's take another question. I think we have a few more questions. What is the ideal body language of a strong negotiator?
This is
just look at Dr. Remy, and you'll know what a strong negotiator looks like.
I think. Thank you so much, Nabil, for the recognition. I wish it was true, but coming back to the question, typically, what I advise my students is to be authentic. To be authentic. Try to remain yourself under stress. The more I think stress has a natural. It produces a natural reaction of shortening our planning horizon and shutting off things that normally we use for logical and reasonable thinking.
Right.
In confidence, the willingness to understand each other, empathy. These are characteristics of good negotiators, of strong negotiators. What are the signs of confidence? Open posture, looking each other in the eyes. Smiling is a natural reaction which is strongly inhibited by stress. So typically those who smile are relaxed. Those who smile also produce positive perception of the other for the other party. We like people that smile. And this is also hardwired. This is how our connections in our mind work. So we like people who are happy. We like people who are smiling when they do not avoid eye contact, are friendly in terms of how they speak and what they say. Unfolded arms, right? Also unfolded, uncrossed legs. These are typical signs of confidence that, combined with all the rest, give an authentic and empathetic perception of us as negotiators. Having said this, let me maybe mention one more recommendation, just as a bonus. There is also a very deliberate strategy, a conscious strategy in terms of body language that aims at increasing or improving rapport between the parties, and it's called mirroring. Mirroring can be verbal, and it can be also physical in terms of
the body language. Gesture.
Just repeating what the other party does. So if the other party tilts the head, we tilt the head. If the other party crosses the legs, we cross the legs. If the other party leans forward, we lean forward. And this is also something which is hardwired in our minds, and that is we like people who are like us. And mirroring, it's a deliberate strategy that is based on exactly this observation. If we want the other party to like us, behave like them. Even if it's at some point a strategic behavior, meaning a fully controlled action, it's based on an observation that people who like each other do that subconsciously. Do exactly mirror each other. But although it's a natural phenomenon, it can be also used strategically. For example, if you are at a gathering and want someone of let's say opposite gender to like you, well, mirror the behavior. That's the first step into decreasing we shouldn't be decreasing social distance, right? But improving the possibility of them liking us.
Yeah, true. Thank you for this. A good explanation. What is the one trait that one must not have if he or she wants to be the best negotiator? There are quite a few.
Just
actually.
One.
Go ahead. Yeah, just one. There are quite a few.
That's a tough one. Let me think for a second. I think one of the characteristics of good negotiators is that they are able to think strategically under pressure. Yeah. So to answer the question by negation, yeah, what is the characteristic of that one should avoid? And that is one should avoid, let's say, shortening or inhibiting our decision-making capacities in a stressful situation. Yeah? In other words, to what extent am I cracking under stress, under pressure? How do I deal with pressure? Because in negotiation, in the moment we discussed, right, when we at some point realized, hey, he doesn't understand, she doesn't understand, how do we solve it, right? And that's a stressful situation. That's frustrating. This is where the pressure builds up. And the other party can also increase the liberty or not, increase even the pressure. And I think the characteristic of great negotiators is their ability to keep their cool. Yeah? Even if it's not possible to completely eliminate or alleviate ourselves from the stressful situation, some of us, to a certain extent, it's possible to control it. And I think if we want to be great negotiators, we need to be able to deal with complex decision problems under stress. And I think if that's one, but there are many more. So, for example,
there are many more.
Yes, the ability to produce solutions. So creativity. To what extent, given the two sets of information, two sets of interests, I'm able to come up with alternatives, how to dovetail them. And there are many other ones. But I think if I was to nail it down to one, I think I would go with the ability to think reasonably under pressure.
Yes, not to crack under pressure, and because what pressure does is it takes you away from your best version. You kind of lose control on the traits that you have as your strengths, and then you end up appearing very mediocre, and sometimes even below average. Let's take one more question, last question of the day. Does gender play a role when it comes to negotiation? That's a good question. That's a good question. Please give us both perspectives, the male and the female perspective, both perspectives, please.
Sure. Short answer is yes, it does. Yes, it does, and there has been a lot of research done on gender differences in negotiation. And let me focus a little bit on giving you guys a gist of it. Of it. So there is no systematic difference in performance between men and women. It's just that men are better at certain situations and women are better in other situations. Let me give you guys a couple of examples. When it comes to distributive negotiation situations, win-lose, that's where men are better at. When it comes to negotiating for ourselves, such as, for example, negotiating our salary or something that we personally benefit from, it's men that are typically better. However, let's look at the other side. When we talk about negotiating on behalf or for others, such as, for example, for the family or for, I don't know, for a corporation or for a constituency, for others, it's women who are better. Their performance becomes superior when they don't negotiate for themselves. For some reason, our ladies have a difficulty have a hard time asking for more for themselves. But when it comes to fighting for the families, like lioness, right? They are willing and ready to fight until the last for the last cent. Complex situations, where value creation is possible. Typically, it's the women who have a broader perspective and are able to create more value. So it's not that one gender is better than the other. It's that we have different strengths that manifest themselves in different negotiation situations. So natural conclusion is, if we want to have the most effective negotiation teams, we need to take care about gender diversity. In other words, have the team that is a cross-gender team and in negotiation, and you will have both perspectives. So yes, negotiation plays an enormous role in the negotiation. Gender plays an important role in negotiation, but it's very hard to say which gender is better. It's situation specific.
Very good answer, very comprehensive. Actually, that's just made me think about something that I've been through. I've been in a situation where, and this is in Russia, where I could not speak Russian, and we were supposed to do write an MOU, agree on some terms, and there was a translator in the middle, and I knew when the translator would kind of, I figured somehow that when I am trying to show a gesture to the translator so that he can show the gesture to the person I'm trying to sign the MOU with, that information is not going correctly, because somehow the response of a smile, if I was expecting a smile, that never came. If I was expecting some gesture of acceptance, that never came. So that gave me one perspective on coming back and flying back to Pakistan. I was wondering how difficult it becomes when you cannot speak the same language and you have to negotiate. And you're so dependent on the mediator, on the moderator, on the translator. And that's also a setting which we kind of need to know how to handle. Any few tips for that when you are dealing with people for different language?
Yes, this was a story of my life last year. I worked on a startup in Shanghai, China, without speaking Mandarin. So all negotiations that we did there were mediated by someone from my team or an external interpreter who helped us understand each other, because of my ignorance. I didn't speak Mandarin at the time. Yeah, and yes, I completely second to what you've mentioned, Nabil. It's extremely difficult to create rapport, to understand each other and sort of get closer. If we have no common ground. What I found out, however, is that it's not impossible. It's not impossible, and I think the Chinese, at least many of those who I met there, are very open when it comes to time spent together before the actual negotiation starts. Like going out for dinner and or going out to I don't know, on a sightseeing tour or whatever else. And I think this time is well invested. I had a feeling that those who gave me that opportunity, and still, it didn't help me understand Mandarin better. I still was ignorant. We still needed someone else to translate. But in such situation, when we share a meal, when we I don't know, try different, or for me it was trying. For them, it's probably more common, right? Trying new things or exposing me to new things. I think what people also evaluate is our authenticity. To what extent are we genuinely interested in reaching a deal? To what extent do we appreciate them as people, their culture as let's say the bedrock for the negotiation, and my feeling is that we have a natural tendency, we as human beings, it's very hard for us not to like people who want to help us, who are friendly, who are try to show empathy. My after a year spent in China, I had a feeling at the end. I didn't learn much Mandarin. I tried my best, but it's so complicated, right? I didn't get far with that, but I still managed to get some really good relationships within the team and beyond. And that, I think, goes beyond language. Even if we don't understand each other, we can judge the character based on how people behave. And I think this is, if there is one thing that I could that I could give as a piece of advice for you guys in such situations where you negotiate, I don't know, with the Chinese or the Russians or whatever, Germans, whoever else, language, it's very difficult to create rapport without speaking a common language. And at the same time, when it's missing, people start looking at behavioral cues. How exactly how we
find the human commonality. And
exactly,
the human
and there we are all the same. So
we're all the same.
Exactly, you guys in Pakistan are exactly the same with respect to basic reactions to other people's behavior as, for example, I don't know, we here in Germany or other people in the US or I don't know, China and everywhere else. We are all human beings regardless of our differences, and I think that's a powerful message, and this which
very powerful message.
It's very important in negotiation.
Doc, thank you so very much for this, and I genuinely admire the time and the great answers that you gave. I learned a few things. I'm sure the audience did the same. I will openly extend this offer to you on this, that we would like you to come over to Pakistan. I will, inshallah, hopefully make ways for it. I have some ideas which we'll discuss offline in weeks to come. I have a university I'm collaborating with, and I think we should be teaching negotiation, and I think you can be a great guide there into telling us how and giving us guidance into how that can be accomplished here in Pakistan. So we will find and make more ways to bring you over to our country. It's a beautiful country, and you would genuinely enjoy it when you're here, and we'll take good care of you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Nabil, for this for these kind words. I've never been to Pakistan. I'd love to visit the country, and if I can help you guys set up a negotiation curriculum, I'd be delighted to do so.
We will definitely be working on this very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Nabil.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.